Hi guys, welcome to day 5. You have made it to the end of this journey. Thank you so much for embarking on this with me, and take a moment to thank yourself for doing this for yourself. Today's practice is a little different. It is a yin practice. I find yin to be just the most self-love practice. It's like a giant hug. It is slow. We stay in each of the poses. In this particular practice, it'll be 2 to 3 minutes in each pose. So fewer poses, a little more time to really love them and kind of melt into them. For this practice, you will want a block as well as a bolster or a pillow. I'm using a pillow. A cushion would also work. You'll see me use the block underneath my pillow in this practice, and then we'll also be using the block itself for a couple of poses towards the end. If you don't have a block, a sturdy book will work just fine. So go ahead, grab your props, unroll your mat, and I will meet you in a seat on your mat. So coming into our first pose, which will be a seated, wide-legged forward fold. Opening the legs as wide as feels okay. Go ahead and bring one hand in front of you, one hand behind you, lifting the hips, lean the chest forward slightly, and then bring yourself back onto the earth. So making sure you're up on the sit bones and not rolling back on your tailbone. If you find that you are rolling back, go ahead and sit up on a blanket. Prop the seat up with something. Now for this pose, nice and easy, we're going to allow the legs to relax, so don't worry about the toes pointing up to the sky, and gently start to walk the hands forward, any amount that feels okay. Now we'll be here for about 3 minutes, so don't dive straight into your deepest expression of the pose. Stay a little bit higher for a little bit, and then maybe after a minute or so, play with coming down a little bit farther. And try to stay with your breath. Following the inhales and the exhales. We're about a minute in. If you are bringing the torso down a little bit farther and you'd like to prop yourself up, you can bring a block underneath a cushion or a pillow. If you have a bolster, you can use that as well. And maybe bring yourself all the way down onto your prop. And if you need to stay a little bit higher, you can bring a couple pillows or a couple bolsters underneath you if you have them. If you're on a prop and you turned one cheek down onto it, go ahead and turn the opposite cheek. Got about 20 more seconds right here. And slowly start to lift your torso. Coming all the way up. Removing any props if you used any. And then using the hands behind the knees to slowly lift the legs in towards you. From here, go ahead, bring the hands back behind you as you drop both knees over towards the right and then the left, right and left, bringing a little bit of movement in between the poses. So for our next pose, we're going to come into what they call in yin, a baby dragon, but you might recognize it as a low lunge. So go ahead, come onto hands and knees to start. And from hands and knees, bring the right foot in between the hands. So you'll step the right foot up. You're on the top of the back foot, so the toes are untucked, and the right knee is right above the right ankle. Now, if this feels like too much for you, you can bring blocks underneath your hands to help bring a little bit more lift. Decide if that's what works for you, and we'll be here for about 2 minutes. Imagining here that you could send your breath into your hip flexor on the left side, and that maybe the breath could help open up that space. One more minute here. Stay with it. You've got 30 more seconds here. From here, slowly start to bring the hips back in space, gradually straightening the right leg a little or a lot, and then coming forward, bending the knee, and then hips back, flowing in between a bent knee and a straighter leg a few times. From here, we're going to come into full dragon pose, or you might call this lizard pose. Go ahead and heel toe the right foot out towards the right, bringing the right hand to the inside of the foot. So there is more space width-wise in between the legs now. The hands are on the inside of the feet, or the foot rather. And we'll be here again about 2 minutes. You might decide that you would like to come onto forearms in this pose. If that feels too far away, you can always come onto forearms on a block, gradually making your way down. But again, we have a couple minutes here, so I recommend staying a little bit higher for a few breaths, really allowing yourself to settle into the pose, and then gradually deciding if you'd like to go a little bit deeper. Just a little under a minute left here in this pose. Stay with it. Stay with your breath. To come on out of this pose, go ahead, press into the hands as you shift the hips back in space, straightening the right leg a little bit, and then bring the right leg back, bring the right knee underneath you. So you're in a tabletop position now. Go ahead and take a few circles with the hips. And coming forward a little bit, and then bringing hips around the right, and then around back, around left, and forward. And then reverse the direction. Taking just a few circles here in the hips to release the poses. And we're going to come into the other side. So as you're ready from your tabletop, bringing the left foot in between the hands. So the left hand is outside the left foot. Setting ourselves up here. We've got 2 minutes here. So again, not trying to dump the weight all the way down in the hips too quickly. Try to maintain a little bit of lift. Gradually using the breath, allow yourself to melt a little further into this pose. Again, if you need some blocks underneath your hands, feel free to bring them underneath you, give you a little bit more lift in this pose. We've got about another minute here, staying with the breath. Follow it as it makes its way in through the nostrils, down the back of the throat, into the lungs. And then as it reverses its course up and out of the body. Slowly start to come on out. So begin to shift the hips back in space as you straighten the left leg a little or a lot. And then rebend the leg, coming forward. And then pull the hips back. Taking a few like this, bringing a little bit of movement into the legs before we come into our full dragon pose. Go ahead, bend the left knee, heel toe the left foot out towards the left, and bring the left hand to the inside of the left foot. So again, we've got about 2 minutes here in this pose, so decide where you would like to be right now. And gradually allow the breath to bring you a little bit deeper into the pose. About another minute right here. Notice where the mind starts to go when the body is still. Without any judgments. Simply noticing. And then gently inviting the mind back to the breath. From here, slowly beginning to bring the hips back in space and then releasing the left knee back underneath you, finding your tabletop position and taking a few circles in the hips, bringing them around to one side and then to the back towards your feet and then around the other side, shifting the weight forward. And then reverse the direction. Making these circles as big or as small as you would like them to be. From here, we'll come into a supported bridge pose. So making your way onto your back, making sure that you've got your block handy. You'll come to lie all the way on your back with your feet flat on the mat. From here, go ahead and press into the feet, lift the hips, and slide your block right underneath your sacrum. You can choose the height that works best for you. We will be here for a few minutes, so I recommend not lifting all the way up onto the highest height, but the middle or lowest height should work pretty well. We'll be here in about 3 minutes. Once again, noticing where the mind goes. And inviting it to come back to the breath. Maybe tuning in to the gentle rise and fall of the chest and the belly. We've got just under a minute left here in this pose. If you feel that you would like to adjust your block height, please feel free to do so. And then from here, we're going to come into Viparita Karani, which will be a variation on legs up the wall. I'm going to lower my block onto its lowest height. So if you'd like to shift your block, press into the feet, lift the hips, and then change the height of your block if you would like. You can keep the height of the block wherever it is if you would like to keep it. From here, we're simply going to lift the legs up towards the sky. If you do have a wall available that you can use, feel free to scooch on up to the wall, bringing your bottom up against it, and then extending the legs up along the wall. If you don't have the wall available, or if you don't feel like moving too much right now, you can stay just like this, keeping the block underneath you. And we'll be here another 2.5 minutes or so. Staying with the breath, following it in through the nose, down the back of the throat, to lift the chest, expand the ribs, lift the belly. As you exhale, the navel falls towards the spine, the ribs contract, the chest falls. The breath makes its way up and out the nostrils. Got another 30 seconds or so here in this pose. Go ahead and slowly start to lower the feet back onto your mat. Press into the feet to lift the hips just enough to move the block out from underneath you, and then bring the hips down onto the earth. Go ahead and drop both knees over towards the left and then the right a few times. From here, go ahead and hug the knees in towards the chest, giving them a gentle squeeze. And then extending the length long, allowing the feet to be about as wide as your mat. Arms by the sides of the body, the palms will face up. We'll take just a few moments here in a Shavasana. Go ahead and take a big breath in through the nose. Open the mouth and let it go. Allowing the tongue to fall away from the roof of the mouth. Surrendering the entire weight of your body into the earth beneath you. If you have some more time to stay in your Shavasana, I invite you to do so. Otherwise, start to bring a gentle wiggle into the fingers and the toes. And turning the head gently side to side. Go ahead and extend the arms long overhead and take a nice long stretch. Bring your feet flat onto your mat and roll onto the side of your choice. As you're ready, use the hands to help press you up and make your way into a comfortable seat, keeping the eyes closed if you can, the attention inward. Taking a moment to observe breath and body. Go ahead, take a big breath in through the nose. Open the mouth and let it go. As you are ready, gently fluttering the eyes open. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.